So this session I have termed Questions Are the Answers. We've spent a lot of time on that one part of the program, questioning. So I want to give you some questions you can take and just right now apply every day in your sales career. Now the first questions we call open questions. Now the definition of an open question, it's a question that requires thought on the part of your buyer. And they yield more information than just the average question. In fact, you may remember back in grammar school, I do, when our teacher in the subject of English told us about questions called the WWWWH questions. And that was a way for us to remember the what, when, where, why, and how questions. That's why they were basically called open questions. And so I want to share some ideas on this with you. Again, they're questions that give you lots of information. And not only that, they get the buyer feeling ownership feelings. You know, something like this. What do you enjoy most about what we've shared with you? See, that's a what question. They can't say yes or no. They now isolate in their answer what they really enjoyed most about what you're offering them. Or, John, Mary, who other than yourself do you feel would enjoy the benefits of this fine product? Well, I know my relatives and everybody that I know, I'm going to tell about it. So that's a good question. Or, how do you feel you're going to enjoy the product in more than one way? Well, see, that's a how question. So again, these are questions they cannot give you a yes or a no to. A great where question is, I mentioned earlier, where would you put the furniture in this room? That's a great where question. So work on the open questions. And I think by taking them from what I'm sharing with you, you'll be able to write some of your own. And that's really one of the goals of this whole training program, is to stimulate your thinking with what we're teaching. Then have you sit down and say, okay, I can take that what Tom said just verbatim and use it, or I can take and rewrite it for my product or service, my personality, my temperament. And that's also going to happen to you, by the way. You'll go through all this training and hopefully internalize a lot of it, and then you'll start taking it to the kitchen table, the desk, and all of a sudden you'll start saying the words. All of a sudden they become you. I'm amazed how professionals develop a presentation, a way of handling objections. And when they get it down and it becomes a natural part of them, what used to make them afraid becomes one of their biggest strengths. It's really exciting to see. Now, the next type of question I want to share with you is called the closed question. Now, the closed question is aimed at obtaining the right answer. Now, this closed question is only just a yes or a no. A yes or a no. Now, the best closed question that I teach and I just loved at the table or desk is actually a question that is defined as a tie down. Now, let me give you the definition of a tie down. It's a question at the end of a sentence that demands a yes. Now, I've used a couple in the presentation, haven't I? In fact, that was one, wasn't it? I did it again, didn't I? You're catching on, aren't you? They're kind of fun, aren't they? See, the tie down is taking isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't he, hasn't she, and nicely putting them on the end of a sentence with a very gentle little nod. Now, I want you to work with me. I'm going to say a tie down sentence. You join me adding the tie down and giving me a little nod. Ready? A reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it? Good. We're all interested in quality products, aren't we? You're catching on, aren't you? Investing in a quality product makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You'll enjoy seeing how happy your family is because you've taken care of them with our protection, won't you? So I'd love you to work on that little tie down. Now, a couple warnings. Don't overuse the same one too often. Meaning, if I used isn't it, as I did in the beginning, a reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it? I'm not going to use isn't it again in the presentation. The reason is, you say the same phrase, especially trying to get an agreement with someone, and they hear the same words more than once. Now you've fallen into a negative called redundancy. And redundancy is when you say the same word or phrase too often to where their ear picks up that you've used that before. And they'll start now getting afraid because they feel you're being manipulative. And I don't want you to ever use anything that we teach to manipulate, to hurt anyone, to do something that's not good for everyone concerned. So try taking that now. Isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, can't you, won't you, haven't you, hasn't it. And today, use them not only in business, but I think the one way to really learn all the questions is to use them in your family life. You know, you might go home tonight at the kitchen table and you might turn to your child and say, "Was a nice day today, wasn't it?" And you'll be amazed how your child will give you a nice little nod back. Was nice out there. And you're going to have such fun as you build this into your every day, every presentation in your life. Now, the next question I want to go over with you is actually called the inverted tie down. Now, we just did the regular tie down. We took the isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, put it on the back of the sentence with a little nod, getting agreement. The inverted tie down is taking the same little isn't it, doesn't it, wasn't it, couldn't it, wouldn't it, shouldn't it, but instead of putting it on the back, which demands a yes, you put it on the front that suggests a yes. So instead of saying a reputation for professionalism is important, isn't it, I'll just put the isn't it on the front. John, in today's world, isn't a reputation for professionalism important? Or instead of saying investing in a quality product makes sense, doesn't it? Doesn't it make sense to invest in a quality product? So in other words, you're inverting the tie down by putting it on the front. Instead of saying something like, "You can see the benefit, can't you?" we just put "can't you" on the front. Can't you, John, after all we've gone through, see the benefits that our fine product will bring to you and your family? Now, you want to work on them both ways. You want to develop a couple regulars. As I mentioned, don't overuse the same one. Redundancy. You also want to put some of the tie downs on the front, inverted. And if you invert them, you'll be amazed that you can use more inverted because it doesn't push them into any type of agreement. Now, there's another type of tie down. It's called the internal tie down. And you put the internal tie down in the middle of a sentence instead of not the front, not the back. Kind of like this. Once you get the feel of it, you can really control it well, can't you? Now, that would be the standard. Or we'll invert it. Can't you really control it great once you get a feel of it? Now, here's the internal. Listen now. Once you get a feel of it, can't you really control it well? So the internal, we put the tie down, the can't you, in the middle of the sentence. And then, of course, the last one is called the tag-on tie down. And this is where your buyer, your client says a statement, they don't tie it down, so you do. So let's say your buyer says, "You know, I can see the benefit." You then add, "Well, can't you?" with a nod. Or they say, "It sounds like something we should do." Then you add the tie down, doesn't it? The husband turns to the wife and says, "Mary, this sounds like something we need to do." And she says, "I agree." And then, of course, she, in essence, with that, is tying the whole presentation down. Have fun with the questions, master them, use them, and make a lot more money, and have a wonderful life.